Hi guys, it's Matt from Optimus Futures. Well, I've been over a month now, I think, at home or something like that. I can't even recall. Um, One thing that really helped is that I work with a really good, dedicated group of people, and they're competent at Optimus. And we were all able to work remotely and collaborate as a team and service all the customers as usual. The reality is that we live in, thank God, in a digital world, and we have a lot of tools to communicate between one another and make conferences. So everything has been working smoothly. Also, not to sound like an Oscar speech, but I'm also very grateful to all the clearing firms that we work with that were able to make it work for us. So everything has been good, and I hope your health and I hope you have been good as well. I know that it's been a little bit difficult. Well, it's an understatement. During the last month, especially being at home and with the kids, and and always being exposed to news and not knowing what to think, not to think. But we'll address all of that. I'll make it a little bit of a lengthier post, a lengthier video, so we can discuss a number of things that have happened during this month and some of the things that I wanted to share with you. So I want the theme of this video to be what have we actually learned as traders and, excuse me, as decision makers during this time. So here's a perspective. You, or many of you, want to become full-time traders. I know this is your goal and your dream. And this month gave you a really good perspective of what it's like to sit at home in front of the screen, be exposed to the markets 24/7. I know it wasn't a usual month. I know it was a very extreme month, but nevertheless, you sat in one environment, you've been exposed to the markets 24/7, right in front of the screens, and now you can ask yourself, is that something that you really like? And your conclusion could be, yes, I love it. I love being all day at home and just trading from my computer. Or some of you may say, I don't think I can do this all the time. So then it's your decision to be part-time. Or some of you may have decided that you're going to trade once in a while. But whatever you decided, it's absolutely fine. And this is not something that anybody could criticize you for, because this is your personality, and at the end of the day, you have to do things or think along your lines, along your risk tolerance, and what's you're comfortable with. So not necessarily join the herd that says, yes, I want to be a full-time trader, I want to be there all the time. And again, this might be something that you do like to do all the time, but some of you may decide to just trade periodically or trade during certain hours of the day, maybe in the afternoon, maybe in the morning. But again, I'll leave it up to your decision. But this month was really good in terms of letting you decide what kind of trader you could become in the future. Just give you a little bit of a perspective. Some things that I wanted to talk about is some things that I have learned during this month myself. And I've been doing this for longer than I'd like to admit. I started very, very young in the business itself, and I've been licensed for many years. But, every single time the market teaches me something. And it doesn't necessarily teach me about the market. It teaches me more about decision making, right? So the markets, they go up and down, and they go up and down at certain speeds during certain periods. Sometimes they recover differently, but that's all really structure. And it just repeats itself in different formats and at different velocities and speeds and the ups and the downs. But that's essentially what happens. But how it happens, this is where you have to kind of learn and grow as a trader, make the right decision. So I hope I want the theme of this video to be, what have you learned as a trader during this month? I'd love for you to share your thoughts with me here underneath the video. I welcome, you can write as much as you want. I'd love to read what you learned during this month about yourself and how it affected your trading. So here's some things that I have learned, okay? And I made some notes, so if I don't keep an eye contact, that's because I'm reading some things. So first thing is that I've learned that the catalyst for any movement is irrelevant. What does it mean by a catalyst? The reason, the main reason that triggered something. So markets get overbought and markets get oversold. And we're always concerned ourselves with the reason as to why something should fall or why something should go up. And we shouldn't. So when the S&P was trading at 3,400, a lot of people out there were warning the market gets overheated, statistically speaking, right? 12 years, bull market, you know, we had some drawdowns and some sort of we had retracements along the way, but every time we just recovered very, very fast to the high side. Again, new highs, new highs, new highs. And there we went with 3,400, you know, just broke the 3,000 and just kept on running towards the 3,400. And some people were saying, well, this is just a little bit too much. But people are asking why. And then the market collapsed. And what I've realized along the way, the why every single time is different and it's irrelevant. It's really irrelevant that it was the coronavirus. If it wasn't the coronavirus, it would be something else that would be a catalyst. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it would be, but it would be something else. Of course, the market could have gone to 3,500, 3,600, and then retraced. But we know one thing, that every time the market gets overheated, the retracements, you have to be careful. That's what I was about to say. And you have to make sure that you understand that the drawdowns and retracements could be very, very big. So we went from 3,400 to 2,100. And I understand the dilemma of every trader. Every trader is thinking, okay, when it's at breaks 3,000, I could have gone short, right? And I would have lost. Of course, yeah, you would have. But, you know, you can trade the market without guessing the top, but you always have to protect yourself from the downside. As long as the market was going up and you kept on going long, it was absolutely fine. It was not a mistake. But you clearly have to be cautious and in terms of what the market could do afterwards. So the way to think about it is like this: when something is out of the norm, it's out of the norm, right? So 3,400, we've never been there before. Even at 3,200 or 3,100, it was out of the norm. But it is one thing that I've learned, that it's okay to be both confident about your decision and humble how little you know. That's okay to do that, right? So the confidence comes in terms of, okay, the market is long and I'm trading on the long side. But at the same time, saying to yourself, look, something could happen here. And again, like I said, the catalyst is irrelevant. Don't try, you're never going to know the catalyst, because risk is always something which is unknown. What I mean by that is that there are knowns that everybody talks about, right? It's always in the news and these things are repeating themselves. You know, it could be, you know, like they were talking about, you know, the issues we had with the trade with China at the time, or people talking about, you know, the big federal debt out there. So those are the things that are known. And usually they're not, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, they're not the ones who are posing the risk to the market. It's always the things that come out of nowhere. So you always have to be aware and say to yourself, the catalyst for any big movement to come is irrelevant as to why. And I'm not going to guess, but when I see it, I hope to recognize it. And afterwards, you know, I'm going to act accordingly. If it's starting to affect the market in a volatile way and I see very big retracements, I'm going to try and catch the bottom, right? I'm going to see if the market recovers from it, and I'll go long again. If it starts going down and it changes direction, I could be short. So again, not to sound repetitive, but what I want you to learn out of this again, to keep on saying to yourself, the reason is irrelevant and the catalyst is irrelevant. So that brings me to my next topic that I want to talk about, is how we essentially digest the news, especially how we digest negative news, and that is again part of decision making. And I love talking about trading as part of decision making, because if you remove everything out of trading, right? If you remove the brokerage side and the news and everything, and the talk about, some people talk about order flow or Fibonacci or moving averages. At the end of the day, it's about decision making, right? It's the psychological process of making the right decisions with a lot of unknown variables. So one of that, and understanding in part of the decision making, is how you yourself, or us in general, how we digest bad news or things that are shocks, right? So there are blogs that I read, and I forget the name of the guy. I'm going to give him credit at the end of this video at the bottom. Provide a link because I think, I don't like to steal ideas from other people. Actually, you know what? I'm going to actually tell you who it is. I am actually going to do that right now. So, and you have to excuse me for that. Okay, his name is Morgan Housel. That's the guy, Morgan Housel. And I've read this piece by him, and he was talking about how we interpret bad news, and I just wanted to give it a little bit of a twist to the trading side. So here we go. How do we digest the bad news? So first of all, we ignore the bad news because it's unfamiliar and everything is still very, very calm around us, right? So think about everything I say in the context of the coronavirus that we've been through recently, right? So at first, think of yourself as the decision maker. Maybe this is something that you experienced, or maybe you were smarter than all of us. But this is the process that I believe majority of us, act when we hear bad news. So first of all, we ignore the bad news. Again, as I said, it's unfamiliar and everything is calm around us and we don't see big reactions and life is as usual, right? Then it starts to be a little bit worse, and then the next thing that happens is that we deny the news, and we don't ignore the news like we did the first time. But what we try and say is that, the facts are totally out of context. It's not here, it's there, it's different here, whatever reasons we find, right? Okay, so that's the next stage. We deny it, that this is actually happening. The next step that happens is that you get anxiety over the news, and to compensate for the time that you were wrong, you basically get some sort of a guilty feeling, and now you start imagining worst case scenarios, right? Now you're thinking, oh my God, this is the worst and we're all gonna die. And basically, now you have to, everything that you thought before kind of changes, right? And then you accept the bad news, you adapt to the bad news, and you live with it, right? So let's talk about those 4 phases. Again, you ignore the bad news, you deny the terrible news, you get anxiety about the news, and then you kind of accept the bad news and you adapt to the bad news and you just live with it, right? So why those 4 steps are so important? Because, when you starting to get news, right? If you see something that is being discussed out there, or some sort of a variable that's being introduced to the marketplace as a trader that nobody considered before, and something very new, right? So this coronavirus was just kind of very new to all of us. Of course, the world is not new to pandemics. Pandemics occurred, but not in our lifetime for most of us, right? Unless there's somebody who has a great grandpa who's been through Spanish influenza, but most of us have not experienced it. So now it's there. Now, next year it could be something else, or in 5 years it could be something else. But the point to remember from all of this, if there's a variable out there that could potentially be of risk, or don't ignore it, right? Just try to understand the implications of it and not just go through the same 4 phases that everybody else goes through, because it could affect your trading, right? That's really what it is. Again, part of trading is decision making. So you have to talk about, you have to consider things that are out there and other people don't consider, right? And I'm going to tell you this. If you're making all your decision making, if all your decision making comes from just the regular sources, it's written by people, but they don't know anything. That's the truth. I find 1 out of maybe 50 articles to be something that I would say, wow, that was really good information. Or usually it's some sort of a paid subscription that we get, and people have expertise and they really, really do the research. So they don't write on the web just for the sake of content and to be the first one out there to appear on Google News to get the clickbaits and the advertising and everything else. All right. So this is the part of the bad news that we discussed. Okay, things improve, right? So when things improve, we ignore the good news, right? So in the midst of all the bad news that's happening, there's some sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. So we ignore the good news. We try to avoid any downside now, and we're not digesting the good news as being good. And again, it goes back to your guilty feelings that you didn't recognize the first time around how bad it is. So now you're ignoring the good news, and then it's the same cycle. You deny the good news. You become very risk averse, and you tune out the good news because everybody else out there with the glimmer of hope is being criticized. The next thing is that you accept that you missed the good news. You realize things that have turned the corner, and most people have missed the good news when they were in pain, when the good news were in plain sight, and now in hindsight, everything is, it was apparent that, things are improving, right? The next thing is you accept the good news and abandon the old feelings you had. You enjoy the fruits of progress, and again, you have aligned your values with the media and social media, and optimism rules your life. So that's also in the midst of you didn't recognize the bad news when it was out there. And in the midst of all this, the good news starting to come out, and you don't recognize it either. And I think whether you're a trader or an investor, you have to recognize it, right? Because there's always hope, and I always say we will get through this, right? A lot of people say, this too shall pass, but I like to say, because it relies on time, this too shall pass. But I like to say we'll get through this because it gives you a little bit of power, in your life. So again, we'll get through this. The last thing that I've learned about this is that time, right? So how much time can pass during a certain period when it affects us? So when we went through this volatility, it went, I think it was something like, honestly, I think 6 weeks or something like that, right? So you have to realize that every single time you can have things that are taking place, and you don't necessarily have to think about, whether it was 2008 that the market melted down because of the mortgage-backed securities, or you have now a period because of coronavirus. It all recoveries and picks and bottoms, they occurred during over different times. So this is when sometimes statistics become irrelevant. Statistics are important. I'm not going to downplay, that, but I think sometimes they're just irrelevant. I think Churchill said it right. He said lies, damn lies, and statistics. essentially, we have different periods that cycles can go through, and you just have to be very flexible and understand that you can wait 2 months, or you can wait a month, or you can wait 2 weeks until everything goes back to normal. But at the same time, during that volatility, you might have found an opportunity also to trade during that period and adapt yourself to it. And again, if you're trading futures, just to remind you that there's a substantial risk of loss in futures trading, and past performance is not indicative of future result. Okay, the final thing that I've learned is that everything is the same, but in a different format. So this pandemic happened in a digital world. Like I said, we've been through pandemics before, but this time we were still able to function, communicate, trade electronically, and it makes a really big difference for you as a trader, right? So you kind of understood that even with all of this, some form of life, maybe not restaurants and maybe not stores. And again, I feel really bad for those people, but from an economic standpoint, you have to understand that in every time the market goes through retracements, you really have to, instead of panic, just kind of look objectively. Netflix, I think, is an all-time high. Amazon is an all-time high. Companies like DocuSign, all of those companies that we all of a sudden rely on them, that we relied on them before, now we rely on them even more. And this is not a promotion for you to go and run and buy those stocks. I'm just telling you that during all this period, there are still things that have thrived. And again, like I said before, everything is the same, but in a different format. So again, we're going through a pandemic, but it's a different format that it's taking place today. And it's very important because as a trader, you have to be flexible, right? So a lot of people are questioning, well, is the market going back up or is the market going back down? I don't know, right? But I could tell you that if you look objectively at some companies that rely on, for example, on online transactions, like I think it's called Shopify or something like that, it made a new all-time high. And all those technology stocks, they're affecting the NASDAQ, which, potentially in a few months, and again, potentially, past performance on indicative future results, and I'm not a future predictor, we could potentially have the NASDAQ making new all-time highs because of all those technology companies. Everybody's sitting at home and everybody's using it, so it could happen, right? So again, as far as decision making, be flexible and remember, everything is the same, but in a different format. Okay, now the last thing that I want to end up with is this. Now that you're all sitting at home, I think we live in a world of misinformation, and it's not getting better. So if you, between the forums, for example, like Reddit, which is filled with, I'm not even going to go there, versus personal blogs, tweets, sites, financial sites, political sites, there's a lot of misinformation. And I'm not saying that everybody writes to misinform you on purpose, but everybody has an agenda and everybody has a way of thinking that might be affecting you. So your goal, okay, in the years to come, for as long as you're a trader, when you make decisions, try to be very, very objective. Recently, I saw a video, not a video, but a documentary about how people behave on Twitter. And so it showed people that they start out as a group, right? So let's say you have a political system, which you have the right and the left, and I'm not taking any sides. But what happens is they all communicate together, right? Right here. But what happens over time, they move away like this. So the right, whoever is on the right side of the politics, the right wing communicates only with the right. The left side, is communicating only with the left. And what does it tell you? It tells you that there's such huge confirmation bias, which means people find reasons to believe, they find reasons to, when they do the research, they try to find things that justify their opinions, and they wouldn't consider things that would be facts, that would be the opposite to their opinion. And they communicate only in a world that justifies their opinion. So the people from the right love talking to people from the right because how right they are and they feel good about themselves, and the people from the left are talking only to people from the left, not considering the right. But the truth is, there are intelligent people on both sides of the aisle, right? In every decision making. So it's not only about politics and economics, in any approach that you have. So I'm just always afraid that in a world of misinformation, people write to specific crowds that think in a certain way. And I'm just afraid it's affecting their trading decisions, right? I'm just concerned that, for example, I don't know which side of of the aisle you are. It doesn't mean, I'm not talking about politically, but let's say if you think the market is going to recover right now, like a lot of people say, oh, is the market going to recover? Or some people saying, you know what, it's impossible that it recovered so fast and we're going to go into the Great Depression. You might believe in either one of those things, but what I'm asking you is to stay objective. What does it mean to be objective? It's not to have strong opinion, right? It's really to be flexible with everything that you think about and always say to yourself, okay, I have an opinion. I have the right to this opinion. This is what I believe. But maybe somebody will present me with a fact that will change my opinion. What happens in reality? People have an opinion and they're presented with a fact. They say, but you, but this, but that. And they just don't want to believe in it, right? They just kind of close themselves. So my goal is to tell you that if you want to be a trader, right, you have to be a flexible person. Opinions, when you interpret charts, if you're long the Nasdaq and it's collapsing, you want to get out. And if you're short and it's going up, and stocks are making some new all-time highs, and you don't fight those things, right? If there are certain facts that are in front of you, those are prices. Prices are facts. Trends are facts. Could they change? Yes. But right now, when you look at them, they're facts. So I'm going to end up on a positive note that I wish all of you nothing but the best. I missed doing those videos very much. And I look forward to do more of them. And doing them on a more frequent basis. And I always enjoy when I talk to people on the phone and they say they enjoy those videos, because my goal is really, to add to the way you think about the markets and help you in your trading. So I wish you good health, stay safe, stay healthy, and until the next time, I wish you guys all the best. And again, please like this video. Please, I'm love to hear your opinions and how this market affected you. And until next time, so all the best. This is Med Z from Optimus Futures. Take care. Bye-bye.